Some artists explode onto the scene with undeniable hits, only to fade from the mainstream conversation just a few years later. In this video, we look at 8 artists with multiple hits that fell off. Kingston. Kingston made one of the most explosive debuts of the late 2000s with his global smash Beautiful Girls. It used the Stand By Me sample in a way that felt fresh and instantly memorable, becoming one of the biggest hits of 2007. His follow-up hits Me Love and Take You There continued the momentum. Then Fire Burning and Eeny Meeny with Justin Bieber cemented him as a hitmaker with a distinctive Caribbean-infused sound. At just 17, he looked poised to become the next major superstar, crossing genres in a way few artists in his era could, but his momentum began to fade in the early 2010s. Part of this was because of the life-threatening jet ski accident in 2011, which sidelined him during a crucial period of his career. The industry was shifting, and his style suddenly sounded dated. His later releases found modest traction online, but lacked the chart dominance of his early work. By the late 2010s and early 2020s, he had completely disappeared from the charts. While he continued to release music and collaborate with younger artists, none of them made a dent. When on May 23, 2024, his house was raided by a SWAT team and his mother was arrested, and he was charged with theft and fraud. He has now been sentenced to 3 years in prison. It once seemed like Kingston was on the road to becoming a legendary artist, but that didn't quite happen. Iggy Azalea. Iggy Azalea's rise was one of the fastest in pop and hip-hop recent history. With the release of Fancy in 2014, a song that dominated the charts for weeks, she became the first female rapper since Lauryn Hill to claim the #1 spot. Her collaborations like Black Widow, Problem, and Work generated massive streams and cemented her as a crossover star, becoming the first notable white girl rapper. At her peak, Iggy was everywhere. Award shows, magazine covers, and brand deals, with features that seemed to guarantee chart success. But her fall was just as rapid. Iggy faced intense backlash online over accusations of cultural appropriation and questionable public comments. The hip-hop community never fully accepted her in the first place. Her black scent steadily became a problem. As criticism intensified, her credibility started to fade. Behind the scenes, conflicts with her label delayed her album releases, killing her momentum at the wrong time. By the time she released singles for a new era, like Team and Mo Bounce, the cultural tide had already turned against her. After her second album was cancelled, she went through years of uncertainty. Iggy then continued releasing music independently, scoring minor viral moments, but never reclaiming her early dominance. She fell off the lofty heights of her early career, and by 2021, she announced her retirement from music. In January 2023, she launched her OnlyFans. She reportedly earned more than $48 million in her first year alone. That's her primary business now, and considering the amount of money she made, I can't blame her really. Jessie J. Jessie J exploded onto the global pop scene in the early 2010s, delivering bop after bop. Her breakout singles Price Tag and Domino positioned her as one of the next big pop superstars, while Bang Bang with Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj kept her firmly in the mainstream conversation. She had the voice, the look, and the momentum to become a megastar. She was also a great songwriter, even writing hits like Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA. At one point, Jessie J was widely expected to become one of the defining pop voices of her generation. But despite her undeniable talent, her career trajectory began to shift, with her album Rose flopping. Her decision to tour China and participate in competitions like Singer temporarily revived interest, but it didn't translate into a global career resurgence. This year, she came back with a new album, Don't Tease Me with a Good Time, but none of the singles got any type of traction. She is a prime case of an artist who once delivered hit after hit, but then struggled to maintain long-term mainstream relevance. Sisqo. Sisqo's rise to fame is one of the most unique stories in R&B history. As the lead singer of Dru Hill in the late 90s, voice already stood out. The group scored a couple of hits, but his solo career took off in a way almost nobody expected. With the release of Thong Song in 2000, Sisqo became a cultural phenomenon. The song was everywhere: radio, TRL, clubs, commercial, parodies, you name it. His bold theme, catchy production, and flashy choreography turned him into a pop icon overnight. The song went on to peak at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. Then he followed it up with Incomplete, an R&B ballad that became his first #1 hit on the Hot 100, proving that he wasn't just a novelty act. However, Sisqo's follow-up era struggled to sustain the momentum of his breakout hits. Second album, Return of the Dragon, while moderately successful, lacked a defining single on the level of Thong Song. Meanwhile, the music industry was shifting, and R&B was evolving, and hip-hop was taking over. Sisqo's sound fell out of fashion. Behind the scenes, label changes, management issues, and delays further slowed his career. Then he went quiet, with his follow-up album coming 14 years later in 2015. By the mid-2000s, Sisqo had largely faded from mainstream music, resurfacing occasionally through reality TV appearances and Drew Hill reunions. Thong Song continues to be referenced, sampled, and celebrated decades later, ensuring Sisqo retains his place in pop culture history. Even if his time as a hit machine was shorter than expected, his story is a classic example of a meteoric rise that proved impossible to sustain. That was followed by a big fall-off. Keri Hilson. Keri Hilson didn't just arrive in the late 2000s, she crashed through the gates as both a songwriter and a performer. Long before she became a household name, she was penning hits for other artists like Britney Spears and Ciara. When she stepped into the spotlight herself, she arrived fully formed. With top 3 hits like Knock You Down and The Way I Are with Timbaland, she became one of the defining R&B pop voices of her era. It looked like she had the potential to become a superstar, but just as quickly as she rose, her momentum stalled. A series of high-profile controversies began overshadowing her music. The most infamous moment came when she dissed Beyonce on her Turning Me On remix, as some of the lines were interpreted as shots at the icon. Even though Keri denied it at the time, the Beehive ran with the narrative and ruined her life. She came out this year and told the full story, that she didn't even write the song. At that same time, her label delayed her releases, stalling her comeback attempts. Her long-teased third album became trapped in limbo. For years, fans waited for new music from her, but she remained largely silent. She came back earlier this year with her new album, but it couldn't really revive her career. Keri Hilson's journey is a case of what could have been, and her fall-off is one of the most undeserved. Kid Ink. In the early to mid-2010s, Kid Ink seemed like he was everywhere. With songs like Show Me, Main Chick, and Be Real, he carved out a signature sound with that West Coast bop and catchy melodies that thrived on radio and in clubs. He didn't rely on controversy or his personality. He focused on creating smooth radio records with addictive hooks. His collaborations with Chris Brown in particular became staples, helping cement him as a dependable hitmaker. But Kid Ink's consistency eventually became his downfall. As hip-hop shifted towards darker trap production, his formula began to feel too safe. His once trendy sound fell out of fashion. Because he didn't have an identifiable brand and personality, his chart performance faded. Even though he's still releasing new music consistently, he hasn't touched the Billboard Hot 100 since 2015. Kid Ink may have fallen off, but his mid-2010s hits still get considerable streams. G-Eazy. From 2015 to 2018, G-Eazy was one of pop rap's biggest stars. He wasn't just making rap hits, he was dominating radio. Songs like Me, Myself and I, No Limit and Him and I put him in the center of mainstream rap, and his polished image made him a staple at clubs. He had the commercial formula down perfectly: minimalist beats, catchy hooks, and simple digestible rhymes. But behind the polished aesthetic, he didn't really have a die-hard fan base. The rise of melodic trap left G-Eazy's clean-cut style feeling outdated. His hits started to dry up. He even did a MGK and went into rock in 2020, but it didn't have that much of an impact. His attempts to pivot failed. As a result, his streaming numbers plummeted. As the 2020s went on, G-Eazy found himself in an awkward space, too pop-leaning for rap fans, too rap-focused to compete with pop acts, and overshadowed by younger artists who were flooding the streaming era. While he still releases music, he is far removed from the hit-making force he once was. His fall-off shows how quickly the pop audience switches up on rappers, as it is hard to survive if you don't have a dedicated fan base. B.o.B. B.o.B entered the 2010s like a rocket. His debut singles Nothing On You and Airplanes were international hits, positioning him as a commercially unstoppable force in pop rap. His versatility set him apart. He could rap, and he could deliver pop choruses that's thinking ahead. For years, he was a guaranteed hitmaker, scoring major collaborations and dominating charts with ease. But just as quickly as he rose, his momentum began to fade. As hip-hop shifted, he tried to adapt, but his style started to feel out of place. But then came the controversy that changed everything. His public insistence that the earth is flat, and his beef with Neil deGrasse Tyson over that led him to be viewed as a joke, and his public persona began to overshadow his music, as he became known as the Flat Earth Guy. Within a few years, B.o.B had gone from one of the most promising young artists in hip-hop to a near-complete outsider. His attempts at independent releases found a small audience, but the days of massive radio hits and Grammy nominations were long gone. His story remains one of the most dramatic examples of a rapid rise, followed by a huge fall. Which artists with multiple hits that fell off did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.